I was always honored to work with Ben, and it's interesting that all of you folks from around the country are honored by Ben and honored by the fact that he founded this organization originally, and that we're all members of this, and that we need to move forward using Ben as a cornerstone of our philosophy and a cornerstone of our beliefs. We've always been proud of the fact that we're not only associated with Ben and his genius and his efforts that have all helped us, but the fact that he's a Michigander and we're Michiganders, and we have been a very important part in developing workers' compensation law across the country. And it's primarily because of Ben as our founder, as well as NACA's founder.
I'm second generation in the family tree and proud of it. And I think as well as being proud of the tradition that was started by Ben Marcus. He's a source of inspiration when we all start feeling sorry for ourselves about the difficult times that we're going through and the problems that we're having representing our clients and getting justice for our clients. We have to look back to our roots and seek some inspiration there. Also, I guess on a more personal note, I think that Ben is a real role model for inclusiveness.
I'm honored to be associated with Ben Marcus. First, you have to think of a typical busy day in a law office, as we all have. Ours was exciting. I can remember Ben coming in and saying, "Oh, here, I want you to see this." And it was a letter by Arthur Larson, written to Ben congratulating him on a certain case that he had just been involved with. And I have just been researching out of the Larson on Workers' Compensation volume of books for the week prior to that. I can remember Ben saying something, "Oh, Roscoe Pound? Yes, I knew him." And like he's talked about today, he would tell the story how he would go out with Sam Horowitz and Roscoe Pound out in Boston Harbor. Now, I just got out of law school. This is Roscoe Pound they're talking about. And Ben would socialize with him. Little story to kind of show the type of person I think Ben was and remains. A very independent thinker. He told me the time that he and Roscoe and Sam were out in Sam's boat, and Roscoe Pound had apparently just written the Constitution for Chiang Kai-shek out in Taiwan. And Ben was very, very upset with that Constitution. It was not something that gave the people sufficient rights. And he was in Roscoe's face dealing with that issue.
I think that you have been an inspiration to me. I believe it's a mission. I believe that it is the highest calling in the law because you're taking care of people. And I'm hopeful that this tape, with your words, will be an inspiration for generations to come. And I want to thank you very much.
Here I am, well seated before all of you people, and none of you are without your hearts. None of you are without your hearts. Your minds vary, of course, but if you didn't have the heart, you have no business being here. 11 people formed in Portland, Oregon. We came together and formed an organization. They paid $1 a year dues. Sam and I were there, and we each had our contacts. We got 11 people together who were interested in workers' comp, primarily interested in workers' comp. But I'm glad when you say that it's time that you started something. When I was in charge of the Department of Workers' Compensation for the union, and when Sam Horowitz wrote his book, I ordered it and got it and read it, and he represented the AFL, and he'd been representing them at the meeting of those who involved in workers' compensation, mostly industry people, and I represented the CIO, and I met him there, and we had a meeting of minds, we decided that writing a book wasn't enough. We had to take that information and spread it among those who practiced workers' compensation throughout the country. And Sam did that. He took his car, I think a station wagon, put his family in it and went. He had a list of those who purchased his book, and he gathered members throughout. We started then, and I was fortunate enough to be the first president involved. I attended several conferences in Chicago, in Cleveland, I think in Toledo, and we grew. There's no question about it.
When you started in the field, how many people were doing workers' compensation?
How many people?
Yeah, how many people were working as lawyers representing workers and for their injuries
Well,
that
in
they...
Detroit, where I was,
Yeah.
not too many. Not too many. In the Detroit area, maybe around 10 lawyers practice workers' comp.
Ben, why did you get into workers' compensation? Why didn't you go into corporate law or some other type?
Why? Well, I got into it because it was the easiest thing to get into, because most lawyers looked at workers' compensation as something that was beyond their capacity. I was a good trial lawyer. I was a damn good trial lawyer. I won at least 80% of my cases, and I made new law. And one of the more favorable awards I got was in Bessie Underwood versus Campbell Wine and Cannon, which established the law regarding the carpal tunnel syndrome. And now carpal tunnel syndrome governs about 50% of all the compensation paid throughout the country. As a result, the insurance companies as well as the major employers are trying to erase from liability all cases of stress and strain that are not accompanied by accident. And this is one of the jobs that you fellas can do. You have to beat them at their own game. My father was an Orthodox rabbi, and he practiced in Richmond, Virginia, 12 years. I studied the Talmud under him. I studied Baba Kama, Baba Metzia, and Baba Basra, the three original Talmudic doctrines that were actually written in Babylon. And I remember the law regarding stress and strain there. I'm very honored that this sort of new group has chosen me for its interview. I gathered a group of doctors, mostly from out of this county. You mentioned one of them who helped me a great deal from Milwaukee. I got some great experts to testify for me. And the doctors, enough of them changed over and they would testify in my cases. They testified honestly. Their payment was generally low compared to what some wanted to charge. I had always in mind that my job was to help the injured worker, and I followed that. I followed it faithfully, and I won the goodwill of practically the whole country. In fact, you are here, you've spent a hell of a lot of money coming here and you wouldn't have come hadn't you heard about me, read what I have written, and try to follow in my footsteps. I feel proud that you've come here to get some benefit of my discussion. I believed in what I did. I believed in it. As I told you, it was studying the Talmud when I was 11 years old that made me believe in a sort of God who managed to influence my decisions.
What would be the single message that you would give us?
First of all, I'd abolish the exclusivity of workers' compensation, as England did 40 years ago. I think workers' compensation has become a really nothing in the economic progress of the injured worker. It's time that we did as England did and give them back the right to sue at law. I think that the courts have held that where a law is extinguished by legislature, there must be a substitute that will give as much benefit to the person involved or the plaintiffs involved as if they hadn't done anything at all. And it's about time that we did away with the exclusivity of workers' comp.
The statutory phrase arising out of and in the course of the employment was very narrowly construed. And what Ben really did over the next 30 years is expand that narrow construction of that phrase into a very liberal construction, and to the point where a Supreme Court justice named Talbot Smith in 1956 wrote a case based upon Ben's arguments that the Workers' Compensation Act is remedial social legislation. It should be liberally construed. And that was Ben's argument for 20 years. And then he took that case, which was called Curley versus Ballou, and ran that to the legislature, and Ben was behind legislative amendments in 1965 and 1968, which almost totally favored the union workers and the workers, and basically was the culmination of his career.
With the influence of Roscoe Pound and my own ability, I changed the law and made agricultural workers compensable. I established the law of getting interest on workers' compensation. You see, I'm 90 now. I'm over 90. I was raised to serve the law, and the law was to serve the people. And there I was in the middle of it. And I did my job, and I did it well, and I earned the respect of men like you and women like you. When a law decreases the remedy that an injured person has, that law no longer is in accordance with our Constitution. You're depriving him of an important right when you make it the exclusive remedy and only give him 25% of his economic loss. Whereas the men in handling the tort claims in automobile accidents get all sorts of amounts. I think you ought to take a good tort case and start a suit at law and forget about workers' comp and argue before the courts that they have no right to downgrade the remedy of an injured worker and giving him compensation when he has a right to sue at law and recover a substantial amount, or the amount that he really loses. Now, I think that that's something that your organization should talk about. You should get somebody who is clever at handling this constitutional question and seeing if you can't get the courts to overthrow the exclusive remedy. The exclusive remedy is a crime. And I think that should be brought to the courts. Don't bring it to the legislature. The legislature is composed in most jurisdictions of people who are interested in their political career and not interested in the career of those who are incapable of providing it for their families. I'm quite content to say goodbye. I leave the real work in hands like you have, minds that can solve mysteries